Good evening, everyone. Welcome to my weekly Hangouts. Tonight we're going to be talking about the Latinos in the environmental advocacy space. Without a doubt, Latinos are influencing every sphere in the country, but especially so in the environmental area. What's happening, for example, a clear example is last week's designation of the San Gabriel Mountains as a national monument by President Obama. And this is the result of a decade-long efforts that have been happening around the country on environmental issues. There's a great energy going on, and there are so many groups that are working on efforts around the country. In the last couple of weeks as well, Latino Decisions and NCLR have released a couple of surveys, poll results that demonstrate that the major reasons that Latinos are going to vote in the coming elections have to do with the environment too. As a matter of fact, in states like Colorado and North Carolina, the percentages of people who are saying that they are going to vote because they want to see their voices being heard is 48% in Colorado and 43% in North Carolina. And so tonight, what this is telling me is, in particular, that while politicians are playing, with the different issues and they're objecting the claims by scientists around the environment, for Latinos, what's happening is that the environmental issues are emerging as one of the top priorities, as a central issue. And so to discuss this, I have a panel of experts here who are going to be discussing all of these efforts that are happening around the country, but also they're going to be talking about what that means, what the implications are in terms of the elections that are coming up in a couple of weeks. So I have here with me, I'm going to start from my left, is Jennifer Allen, who is the National Director of Latino Outreach Programs at the League of Conservation Borders. How are you, Jennifer?
I'm great. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for being here. Next up, we have Mark Magaña, who is the President of Green Latinos, and he's also a League of Conservation Borders board member. How are you, Mark?
Thank you, Elaine. I'm doing great.
Thank you for being here. And last but not least, we have Rod Torres, sorry. I always do that. So I don't know if you remember, Rod has been a guest in the show before, and he is a director at HECHO. And he's going to explain what HECHO means because it's a long acronym, and he can express it better. So let's start with that. You guys are leaders in the space. But for the rest of us who are not necessarily, involved in the environmental movement, we are may not be very clear about what you guys do in your respective organizations. So why don't we go down the line and tell me a little bit about what you do and what brought you to the movement. Anybody can start.
Well, I'll go ahead and start since you handed on me, and I can explain the acronym. It's actually Hispanics Enjoying Camping, Hunting, and the Outdoors, and it's an organization for focused on Latino sportsmen and women who enjoy recreation or have long-standing traditions and even proximity to some of these great outdoor places. We are a conservation organization that want to bring a Latino voice to the table when it comes to issues such as energy development on public lands. And I came to this because I'm from the Southwest. I grew up enjoying outdoor recreation, hunting, fishing, camping, hiking, cross-country skiing out here, and seeing these places being affected by development has really made me think that I'd like to have a strong voice and be an advocate for these places that can't speak for themselves.
Very nice. And organizations like that are so needed, you know, so thank you for all that you're doing out there. Mark?
Thank you, Elaine. Mark Magana. I'm president of Green Latinos, and Green Latinos is a coalition, a national coalition of Latino environmental and conservation leaders from across the country. Leaders like Jennifer and Rod before you here. What brought me into this was I'd always done legislative work, and I've been a lobbyist, and I was doing a lot of health and telecom work, and there was a great interest in getting more people involved during the cap and trade debate and getting more Latino leaders involved. And at that point, I started an organization called the National Latino Coalition on Climate Change, which main goal was to get grass tops national Latino leaders involved in the climate change, the legislative climate change debate of cap and trade. After that didn't succeed and the bill didn't pass the Senate, I moved on and thought I'd really want to work with coordinating and helping to build a coalition from the national Latino who are already in the environmental and conservation space and have been working in silos, whether it's a environmental justice silo in their community or a national green group silo or working at one of the departments of Interior, EPA, CEQ, or a funder or somewhere in the, we didn't have a sense of family amongst those who were working on these issues. We didn't know each other. We were working in silos and we didn't coordinate. And I thought this developing Green Latinos was a good opportunity to both build a coalition and to develop a table from which we can develop our own issues and coalitions professionally. And so far it's been great.
Amazing. It's great to see coalitions forming around different issues around the country because that's where the real change can happen, right? We can't work in silos. So Jennifer, why don't you tell us what you do at the League of Conservation Voters?
Sure, my pleasure. So League of Conservation Voters is a national environmental organization. Works a lot to really translate environmental values into policy wins, making sure that we get folks elected that support a really strong environmental agenda, and then working to really hold them to task and hold them accountable for the votes that they take. The Latino Outreach Program of the League of Conservation Voters is really focused on building up a strong, organized, effective Latino grassroots base that can be pushing for local wins, holding our elected officials accountable for the environmental issues that are important and near and dear to our hearts and to the health and safety of our communities. I came from this, from a lot of different paths. One, just as a kid, grew up, spent a lot of time outside. We went camping, I went hiking. But I more recently, for the last decade, I actually did immigrant rights work. And one of the things that I think really was very strong and loud and clear was the importance of asserting that our communities are not single-issue communities, and that, in fact, some of the rights that we're organizing for, whether it's on an immigration front or other fronts, they're basic fundamental human rights. And within that context, clean air, clean water, and being able to have a space to run and play in, those are all fundamental rights that we also need to be fighting for. I think that's a little bit kind of what drives me to be able to continue to want to do some of this work.
Beautiful, beautiful, and I love that you're saying that because it's when you think of Latinos, you always think of, Latinos is immigration, but there's so many other issues that are of importance to our communities, and the environment consistently ranks as one of the top issues for Latinos every time there's a poll. So to somebody like me, who's kind of an outsider to the environmental movement, it may seem that in the past couple of years there's been a surge in the interest for Latinos. Is the perception correct, or have Latinos always been involved in the space? What is your perspective on that? Anyone?
My perspective is Latinos are long-standing, what I like to call cultural conservationists. Mm-hmm. They have for as long as I've known, we've eaten every part of the animal. We conserve everything around the house. If we forget to turn off the lights, we get a chancla. If we take too long of a shower, we get hit. If we waste if we don't eat everything on our plate, if we have our celebrations at parks, we go camping instead of getting hotel rooms when we go on vacation. Mm-hmm. And all of this seems to be, pardon the pun, but second nature to us.
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree with what Mark said. I grew up going, like I said earlier, hunting and fishing and hiking, and that was the weekend for us. And I spent part of my life in northern Arizona in the small town of Williams, and then another part in Denver. And my dad would load up the car with kids, and we'd go to the mountains, and that was entertainment, enjoyment for us, and I think that those experiences instilled the values that we have for protecting the land.
Very true. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Yeah. So, to your question, I think the answer is also a yes and a yes. Yes, there's a sort of resurgence, and then yes, it's always been there. And I think on the side of kind of the resurgence, right, organizations, national environmental organizations, I think are really starting to pay a lot more attention to the fact that around when it comes to this question of how do we strengthen the environmental movement, our communities are the low-hanging fruit, because of our rich history and cultural traditions and sense of responsibility and obligation to our families, our community, and future generations. We've been, in many ways, kind of waiting for opportunities and doors to be opened in which our voice and leadership can have an impact in some of these critical environmental fights. So, in some ways, our space has changed a bit, and I think we're stepping up in new roles within the movement, and it's incredibly exciting.
So true, and especially now, I think we are so close to the elections, and there's been so many developments lately that point to that, exactly what Jennifer was talking about. That's we're the low-hanging fruit. That we have so much clout that is just waiting for to be exposed and to be utilized in the proper context. For example, a clear example is what happened last week when President Obama designating the San Gabriel Mountains as a national monument. I think because of the pressure that Latino groups have been putting on the president for so long, this is why this happened. And I'm gonna show a little clip of that ceremony. I promise you it's short because we only have half an hour here. But the clip, I want you to see it because what the president is saying there, I want you to comment on. So give me a second. Let me get the whole clip on. I want you. Go ahead. What did you say?
I was just checking if I was back on.
Yeah, you're back on.
Okay.
No problem.
Sound.
Perfect. So now that you have seen the video, I want to, because the president said something very important there, and it was towards the beginning of his commentary. He said that designating a national monument is a social justice issue. So how is that? How is this designating a national monument a social issue, especially for our community? You guys want to comment on that?
Yeah, I'm happy to start that out. So, I think it's an issue on so many fronts. So, like thinking about it economically, and the act of preserving land, and it then becomes it's a struggle then of who has access to land, who controls land, who benefits from their preservation. San Gabriel Mountains are an essential part of clean water and clean air for Los Angeles County. So fights, environmental fights, are social issue fights, and lands fights are social issue fights because it's about our economic stability and our future. But similarly, it's about preserving culture, it's about preserving history, places that are important to us and part of who we've been and where we're going, and how we share that with our family. And there are fights around our rights as well, that we have a right to clean water and clean air. I think it really makes these struggles not just about preserving single spaces and pieces of land, but then about sort of preserving the integrity of our communities and our country, and really sort of asserting who we are and where we want to go and be.
Very true. Very true. You guys want to comment on it?
That's definitely true, and definitely the case. There's been 3 national monuments designated in the past couple of years that Latinos had a big role in. One is, of course, most recently the San Gabriel's. There's also the Green Mountains desert peaks in southern New Mexico, and the Rio Grande del Norte up here in northern New Mexico. And all around these areas, there are Latino communities who have used the land for many, many years, in some cases centuries. The impacts of oil and gas development, growth, all of those things have really changed or could potentially change those landscapes such that they no longer become viable as places for us to use for, let's say, hunting and fishing. If you pollute the waters, there goes the fishing, and there goes the health of the communities downstream. Oil and gas development has been impacting wildlife corridors, and there's all sorts of issues that come up with when we start losing pieces of our ecosystem, and then of course there's the whole recreational impact on people who use the land regularly for recreation, and cultural traditions like collecting piñón, and like curanderos, curanderas going out to their natural quote-unquote gardens out there where they collect their herbs. Those traditions still exist, and we want to keep them alive.
Very true, very true. So, Mark, I have a question for you, because you're being a little quiet. I'm not used to seeing you this quiet. So, Rod made a very important point there, and the point is that our community is disproportionately affected by environmental issues, and this has to do with geography. This has to do with the socioeconomic. We can afford to live in certain areas that are more polluted, or that are closer to the polluting plants. But what are groups like yours, since you have this coalition together, what are you doing? One, to grow awareness within the community in terms of what's going on in the environment and how to protect themselves, but also in terms of influencing the legislators that have a say in this kind of thing, and especially because this issue gets so politicized, and we're going to be talking about that too in a little bit. But tell me what you guys are doing.
Well, first of all, let me apologize for dropping off. I'm going to show you, I'm in rural Wisconsin right now, enjoying the views.
Oh, wow.
The coverage isn't as great as it could be, but
and we're all jealous.
I'll stay on as long as I can. As far as the answer to your question, I think we have taken it upon, our membership has taken it upon themselves to address these issues like carbon pollution, for instance. Mm-hmm. The EPA has presented us with a clean power plan regulation, and we have testified, we have written op-eds, we have done press conferences supporting it. We have visited our elected officials. As a coalition, we've come together both on letters and on physical events in our communities, from Albuquerque to Denver to DC, to be able to say that Latinos, A, are supportive of the Clean Power Plan, B, that we are affected by carbon pollution and by the associated ozone pollution with it. Our asthma rates are sky high, and our children we live with 40% of our community lives within 30 miles of a coal-fired power plant. We need to clean up our environment. So we are doing this jointly as a coalition, and we are all over the country, and our members are taking it upon themselves and using their own organizations to further our influence on this.
Beautiful, beautiful. And it's such a beautiful thing, especially because there's so much interest in the community. I know, for example, in my invitation, you know, when I posted about these hangouts, I mentioned the polls that Latino Decisions and NCLR have taken over the past couple of months, and the reasons why Latinos want to make this an issue at the elections. They want their voices heard. So the poll said that states like Colorado and North Carolina have a high incidence, 48% in Colorado, 43% in North Carolina, say that they're going to be voting in this election because they want their voices heard. So when I posted the invitation, I got a question from one of our viewers, Diego Maya. And Diego wants to know, please let me know what the percentage numbers mean. For example, North Carolina with 43% of the Latino population. Can you talk a little bit about the polls and what the results mean? And anybody, but Rod, I know that you're very familiar with the polls, but anyone can actually.
Well, I think that what we're seeing, and HECHO, we did our own poll as well earlier this sort of at the beginning of the summer on Latino attitudes towards conservation. It's very clear that Latinos want to have a voice in more than just one issue, more than just immigration. We want to have a voice in especially conservation and the environment. And it's clear that we will support conservation when it comes to the voting polls. So it's one of those things that we see ourselves as having a stake in these issues of climate change, environmental health, and the access to public lands and open spaces.
Yeah. So now a general question to all of you, because the elections are so close, and because I think that Latino voices haven't been given the proper context in the conversations about environmental issues, and the fact that these polls show that, you know, we feel so strongly about these issues. So, what effect do you think these are going to have in the elections coming up, and how can we drive people to the polls based on this? Because if this is something that people feel so strongly about, then we should be taking steps to vote in November. What do you guys think?
I think in this cycle, it is a relatively unfortunate cycle for the Latino community, because there are most of the key races, Senate races, are in states that don't have significant Latino populations. But if you take an example like Colorado, where we do have a significant population, there is definitely a amount of respect from the Latino voters and expectation from the Latino voters that their candidates are going to look out for protecting their environment and their neighborhood that they use for recreation, and that they protect their children from potentially asthma. And if they feel like a candidate is not addressing those issues or is not being truthful about it, then they'll come out and they'll vote the way they feel is going to protect their families and their way of life.
Very true. Very true. Jen, do you want to comment on that too?
Yeah, I think it's really important then that in talking with voters that we're underscoring people's voting records as it relates to environmental issues, because one, we know the Latinos are increasingly coming in as new registrants or registering as independents, which in many cases means folks are disillusioned with party politics, they're not excited about candidates. So we need to be talking about issues and then how candidates measure up to those issues and values that we share. And looking at scorecards. LCV does an annual scorecard, at least for federal races, that we can concretely point to specific votes and see how folks did not do for things that we think are important. But I think really focusing in and driving in on how those candidates are to the things that impact our families and our community and our air and our water are critically important.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. And in a relatively close conversation, we just came back from Denver. We were there all last month at the HECHO Latino Festival, and by the way, shout out to Irene Villar, the creator of the festival, and amazing events. And I think we were there in person. We were able to see the momentum that is happening around the environmental issues for Latinos. So where do you see the movement going based on what we witnessed in Colorado last month?
I see empowerment. I see us increasingly coming together, and really thanks to Mark for bringing the Green Latinos together. We're coming together as a wider community across the nation, and realizing these are values that are inherent to our culture, and we want to protect them, and we want to protect the resources that our values are definitely part of. So for me, I see us as really becoming a stronger and stronger voice when it comes to conservation and protecting the environment.
Very true.
I want to support what Rod said real quick, is that we have opportunities to come together, and we are. And when we go somewhere and we go in numbers, we feel we have force. We go to a fundraiser and we go in numbers. We go to a reception and we go in numbers, and we don't feel like we're alone in this debate or this policy agenda arena anymore. We know that we have people supporting us. We know that we have teammates. We know that we have family, and it's a great feeling when you are battling something difficult that you have this kind of support around you. And that was shown at the Eco Latino Festival. It was shown at the Green Latinos National Retreat. And once you make those relationships, one-to-one personal relationships, that bond is difficult to break, and you will be much more responsive to your fellow Green Latino no matter what you're working on, and that's been exciting.
Very true. Very true. So based on that, how do we harness this momentum? How do we harness all of this? What would be your call to action for the people who are watching out there who may not even know how to start, how to get involved, or how to support your efforts? Where can they find you?
So I'll say if you happen to be in Arizona, Colorado, or New Mexico, I want to plug Protégete in Colorado, a grassroots organizing program, part of a partnership with Conservation Colorado. In New Mexico, it's a group called Juntos New Mexico, to plug into, doing great work on clean energy. And then in Arizona, a fantastic group called Chispa, also doing great work around clean air and clean energy. And then I would do a plug to Mark and Green Latinos, which I think has been super helpful for me and for others that are in this movement to build the relationships with one another and learn more about who's doing what and you know, not reinventing the wheel and just really getting much more plugged in. And then the last plug is that LCV also has, if you go to lcv.org, issues, you can find a section on Latinos in the environment, and we've maintained and offer a lot of different actions and opportunities for folks to be able to get involved across the country.
For me, email me at markmagana, MARKMAGANA, at greenlatinos.org. The website's not ready and up yet, so just use email and give me your name and your contact information, and we'll make sure you plug you in.
Make sure you connect with Mark, because he is kind of like the hub. He will connect you to everybody else. That guy knows everyone. And then Rod, go ahead.
Well, one of the things that I definitely say is, number one, get outdoors and continue to enjoy the outdoors, but also come to HECHOonline.com and click on the Join Us tab and give us your information. We'll send you updates on what we're up to and on both, you know, the kind of outreach we're doing to communities to try to get them into the outdoors, as well as you know, some of the harder hitting issues that we're facing, especially in the West right now, and especially with oil development, climate change, methane, all of that stuff. Those are big issues that we're dealing with.
Es un hecho. Es un hecho. So I will end with, you know, huge thanks to Jennifer, to Mark, and Rod. These are, you know, I met you all in person last month, and I think that I so much admiration for the work that you're doing. I would urge everyone who is watching, you know, visit their websites. The websites are rotating on the screen right now. And visit the websites, you know, the Legal Conservation Voters, amazing platform to help people understand the issues and why they need to vote and who to vote for on certain issues too. It's very important for the local race, especially. Mark, because he's like a connector to the whole community of people in the environmental space. Rod, because he's a tireless advocate for the issues, and they have so many resources at the HECHO Online, at the HECHO Online website, that everybody should be visiting all of your websites, getting in contact with you, and getting involved. We only have one Earth, and we have to take care of it, right?
And thank you, Elaine, for putting these together.
I appreciate you being here. If you have any last words that you want to say before you go, this is the moment.
Well, I'd just like to first of all thank you, Elian. This has been wonderful, and you create such a great forum for us to bring a full, well-rounded view of Latino issues. It's really excellent.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here. And Jennifer, thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. No, and thank you for all your great work and keeping us connected too, and creating opportunities for more folks to hear about what we do and to get involved.
Oh, you guys are so amazing. Thank you for being here. Thanks, everyone. This is going to be showing, you know, forever and ever. I always say on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/user/Elian Ramos. And, you know, I'll see you on the interwebs. Have a great night.
All right.
Have a great night. Thank you. Nice view, Mark.
Thank you.